Folks, it's the Happy New Year to you all, and thank you for the responses to our recent prayer letter. One of the things that's come up in that letter is a question about these new assignments that I have. I have two new assignments that take the place of my pastorate in Rapla. Maybe just a side note, the pastorate in Rapla lasted 10 years. That's something that I had a strong sense was going to be true from the very beginning, just by the nature of the kind of assignment that I felt like kind of calling that I had to that ministry. But thankfully, what has occurred in the place of stepping down from that and handing the reins over to others is something of a dream job for me. I have two assignments, one in academia and one in regional leadership, both of which are things that I have dreamt about for a long time. Maybe not in the forms that they have come now, but definitely the heart of those things is something that's motivated me for a long time. So one of those, as I said, is an administrative role in the Central Estonian region of the Baptist and Free Church Union. Just for a reminder, our denomination is less of a denomination, more of a union, a fellowship of churches. There's no hierarchical authoritative leadership chain or hierarchical structure in our union. It's a fellowship of independent churches, autonomous churches. And so my role is not a director's role, it's a representative role and a facilitator's role. Also, we are a union of small churches, and so the way that I'm able to take this on as a full-time job is, again, because I have supporters, generous supporters back in the States and here in Estonia that are helping me to do this, to provide a salary for this job. So I'm very grateful about that. I just want to take a little bit of time to explain to some folks who might be new to our ministry what the importance of regional ministry, and particularly in rural areas like Central Estonia. And so that's really the purpose of this video. It might be helpful for folks in North America to kind of get your heads around the rural Estonian church situation. Take a standard church in the United States of, say, 500 people, maybe even 200 people, reduce the membership, move it to a small town outside of the nearest big city. By big city, these things are relative, I suppose, but a big city here would be 200, 100,000 maybe. Distance it from other churches, hold services in a small private home in one room, like a one-room schoolhouse sort of setting. Send all of the youth that graduate from your youth ministry off to other churches when they go to university or otherwise. Hire only bivocational pastors. Provide for them only 20% of a living wage. That's roughly what most of our pastors in the union are making. And limit their time, the time that they can dedicate to ministry, to evenings after work and weekends. And that's the situation that most of the churches in Central Estonia are facing, at least in our union. And now task those churches, each in their own parish, their own neighborhood, to re-evangelize a culture that's, well, by some estimates, 95% unbelieving. That's a pretty tall order, but that's the situation that we're in. I am in a region of 12 churches, all of them rural, most of them small. They range from 10 or fewer members up to about 200 members. So we don't have any mega churches, no very large churches, and really only 3 or 4 of our churches are over 100. The majority of them are quite small, somewhere between 40 and 10. Rural communities outside of the city centers, geographically distanced from one another so that it's actually quite hard to get everybody together to meet in one place. And at the same time, dealing with a situation where, and I'll show this in a couple of slides further on, A lot of young people are moving their families out into these areas and need to be reached in some way. So the challenge in a nutshell for Central Estonian churches is that we have a missional mandate and very, very few resources and a lot of limitations in the way that we do ministry. So this is a map of the northern and central part of Estonia, and these are the churches that are in the region that I represent right now. Rapla, where I continue to reside with my family, is red only because we live there, and the rest of the churches are spread out. You can see that they're really kind of 4 clusters of 3 churches that are close enough to one another that they could potentially meet if they wanted to. There's also this gap in the middle of our region that really doesn't have any representation, in spite of the fact that there's a major highway running from Tallinn to Tartu that goes right through that area. That's something that probably needs to be attended to. Interestingly, that corridor is really the only place in our region where it would be helpful for all of us to meet at the same time, but really there's nothing there at the moment that we could use to our advantage. This is the shape of our region, very rural, small churches spread out from one another, and it's a region that needs resourcing. So there's an interesting thing that has come up in recent times, and that is that there's research that's been done that was conducted in 2021 or finalized in 2021 about the population changes in the last decade. So here's a comparison between 2011, 2021, and of the regions that have seen positive growth, percentage positive growth, that's not regions, but counties that have seen positive growth. The ones that I've highlighted here are in our region. That's a lot of growth. And if we were to look at a map, this is not a map of growth. This is a map of average age. But basically, this pink area, the moderately pink area, contains all of the different counties that have grown in the last 10 years between 2011 and 2021. And not only that, but they're also significantly younger than the surrounding area. And you can see that the lightest pink strip here is quite young, average age 32 to 35. So this is something that's actually, you can see in the upper part of the picture here. This is Tallinn, and we're seeing an urbanization movement happening not only in Tallinn but also in our other large cities, where people are moving out of the city center into the suburbs here, and then into the, I guess you'd call them the exurbs. Is that how we pronounce that? Which is the surrounding area, the surrounding relatively rural area outside of Tallinn. Those areas, basically everything outside of this ring, is contained within our region. That's our responsibility for re-evangelization, whether we're large, small, have resources or not. These people are moving into our region, and we need to have some way of reaching out to them. This map is a mashup of the two previous slides, one of those, so that you can see where our churches lie. Remember, the blue and the red dots are our churches, existing churches, and I've added in 3 potential mission points in this corridor. Interestingly, one of them is IKEA. Now, IKEA, I've been shopping there in the last year a number of times in order to supply our guest house with furniture and so on. And every time I've been there, I've met with other Christians, some from within our region, some from within Tallinn. It's a very interesting meeting place. It's got me thinking maybe there's potential there for outreach or something like that. And then a number of other places within this corridor that I spoke about earlier that also happen to be right in line with that strip of young people and the high growth that we're seeing. So this is a slide that shows some of the potential, the missional potential that could be developed in our region if we can find a way to do that. That's always the big question in rural ministry. How do you take churches with limited resources, difficult circumstances, and a missional opportunity, put those things together for effective ministry? My approach, and this is an approach that has developed over all the time that I have been in ministry in Estonia, and is really inspired by Estonia. It's been inspired by the cooperation between churches here in Estonia, is a networking approach. And my understanding of regional leadership has developed along these networking lines. So just a couple of points here. And some of these things I've done videos about in the past. If you're interested, I can direct you to those videos about resources and the flow of resources as opposed to containing resources within our churches. There are two areas where this networking approach really has impact on regional ministry in rural areas. One is between churches. The goal of a network approach is really to get resources flowing, to create partnerships between churches, to make sure that churches are strong and can contribute to the partnerships that they have, and then to find resources that can be set flowing along the pathways that exist between different churches. So if you'll remember the map that I had up a little bit ago, these 4 clusters of 3 churches in our region, if each of the 3 churches in each cluster are relating with one another and sharing resources, they're much, much stronger. Even if they're very small, they're much stronger than they would be if they were isolated and attending to the mission in their area on their own. So exchange and the flow of resources, including human beings, is more important than size or growth. So attendance might not be the most important number. Membership might not be the most important number. Even baptisms might not be all that important if the people that you're baptizing are moving on to other churches. What is important is that there's a flow between you and your partners so that people aren't lost to the kingdom. The second point is local influence. Local influence in any community is leveraged, and especially in small rural communities, by combining resource with partnership. Some churches will have plenty of resource. Some of the larger churches in our region have enough resources that they can make do. Rapla is a good example of that. But other churches are very small and they don't have as many resources, and so it's very important for them to have partnerships where they would be able to access other people's resources, other people's ideas, other people's opportunities. And then the third point about ministry between churches, that leadership is about recognition, development, and facilitation of potential. That means that part of my role is to administrate, part of my role is to represent these churches, but in my mind, my major role is to recognize the situations that our pastors are in, to develop the potential of their potential and the potential of leaders within their congregations, and to link these things together. So then the question becomes, how does a region like this become missional? And that really is the task of at least the task that I feel like I have for my time in this role, is how does a rural region with a very small representation, distanced, limited, how do we take on a very large mission? Innovation is something that I've studied in terms of networks, and innovation often happens where clusters of churches, clusters of partners have access to both new ideas and good partners. Their relationships with the people close to them are tight enough that they can get things done, but they also have access to ideas that might be coming from other countries or other parts of the country, their own country, and they can put those things together to address the needs that they have locally. Also, porous borders allow for the flow of resources. So, for example, young people are a resource in our small churches. We're happy to send those people on to other churches in the city when we know that flow doesn't stop at the city, that those young people could potentially circle back or end up in another rural area. The goal is to have them transformed. And likewise, the fact that I have links to the outside world, to North America and continental Europe, means that the resources and the people and the ideas that I have access to through those links can come across porous borders and into our region. And then finally, connections between churches form a missional nest. I have recently discovered in some research on our union's history, and especially recent missional successes, that church planting does especially well in areas where there's a good, strong sense of cooperation between local churches. And it forms something of a nest, a warm nest that these young churches can be incubated in and provide fruit. Places that don't have that kind of warm nesting, that supportive environment, are much harder to plant something new in. And so our missional emphasis is a lot about building the connections that need to happen for those nests to be warm and supportive. It could be that the resources that we need to be missionally effective in our area have to come from outside, have to come from Tallinn, have to come from Tartu, have to come from other parts of the country. But when they do come, we want to make sure that we have a supportive nest where anybody who begins working here knows that they have strong partners. So my goal in this role is to support and identify and equip local leaders to make sure that the people that are in ministry now are being well supported. 2, it's to discover, create, and circulate shareable resources. That could be youth ministry resources. That could be summer ministry resources for youth and children. That could be church planting resources. That could be educational resources. Those are the sorts of things that I want to develop at kind of a meta level, not contained within any one church, but the sorts of things that can be shifted from one church to another and circulate and be used and adapted in different contexts. And then third and finally, to develop a vision for collaborative mission. And that's some of what I outlined in that last slide. I've got a lot of other thoughts on these sorts of things, some other developments, but this is just a way to kind of sketch out for you the way that this role plays into the overall strategy of what's happening in Estonia, some of the recent developments in our region, and how I intend to be working to get those things done. And like I said at the very beginning, this is a tack that I can take, a strategy that I can pursue because I have freedom to pursue these things. I have the support of outside financiers, folks from the States, friends here in Estonia that support my ministry and allow me to have the freedom to try to do things in a way that they haven't been done before. I'm incredibly grateful for that, and I will keep doing this work as long as I can. So thank you very much for your support. If there are any questions, please write to me. My email is matthew.edminster@gmail.com, and I am happy to field any questions and engage with you on these important things. Take care. Bye.